Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Renison Jeffrey, and this is the Workers' Rights Platform. We are broadcasting live from the Workers' Rights Network. And today, ladies and gentlemen, there is an important discussion that must be had today. And the reason why we are having this important discussion today is that there are things that is taking place within the public domain. We must now ask ourselves one question. What is going on with the politics in Trinidad and Tobago? And are there people putting the mouth in things that they ought not to do in this country? Now, at the end of the day, there were people talking to certain people. And on this platform here, a warning would have been sent out for a particular individual. All over, giving their mouth liberty on things they ought not to do. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you may be able to talk for one person, but you cannot talk for the entire race of a certain people. I say it like that because I want you to understand where I'm coming from. So the first video I'm going to play is with the individual in which we sent out a particular warning. And let me do that now, because I want you to understand. Follow the trend today, you know? Because it's something that is about to happen and something that you would have seen an epic proportion that you should pay attention to. First video number 1. Video number 1.
Hey, my name is Renison Jeffrey, and this is the Workers' Rights Platform, and I am broadcasting live from the Workers' Rights Network. Now, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this picture. Now, that person is Miss Anna Monsami, known on Facebook, and she prides herself in calling herself the Santa Cruz on Radio Skisha. Now, this message here is for her. Miss Anna Monsami, be careful of what you say and text messages that you send to people describing me, Renison Jeffrey. Be careful what you are saying. Because at the end of the day, if you continue to do that in the public forum, I am going to answer you in the public forum. And I will let loose an attack that will rock the very foundation of the party that you support. Be careful what you say. Remember, I tell you that this is your only warning. And to any of them clowns on them that you're trying to incite to say things about men, I am watching and I am looking on. Be careful what you do in the public domain. I mind you go on any chat and bad talk, man. But anytime you continue this within the public domain, I am going to respond to you in the public domain. Be careful. Thank you.
Now, my next thing that burning me, right? For the longest while, I have been having doubts about Renison Jeffries and the Workers' Rights Platform, right? Especially when I saw a video with him back talking Kamala when she wrote Trump. And Friday, lo and behold, and I sent you the video, we saw where he's a candidate for Kizell Jackson in Labrie. Andy, I am not going to campaign for anybody that is not in the accommodation. I know it's Lennox, Philip Alexander, the unions, and the UNC. I'm not campaigning for Kizell Jackson. And I think Jeffries should do the honorable thing and remove himself from the ground report platform.
Now that video there,
in Silicon Valley, in the Northern California town
just
of Palo
now,
Alto and Menlo.
Now that video there was issued from this platform in which we were warning a particular individual of the mouth. Now something would have taken place today. I'm a matter of fact, let me go on because there are people that will follow. Not all the time you can explain. Next video, video number 2. Oh, you listen, follow me. Follow me. Video number 2.
Good morning again, Andy, Mikey, Lennox, and to everybody out there. I want to thank our caller, our economist, for that wonderful contribution concerning the religious, the Muslim aspect of it. And I would like to touch on the Hindu aspect of it. I am calling, and I made this call for the local government election. And this morning, as we have 14 days and 12 hours to victory, I am appealing to our Hindu brothers and sisters. Do not listen to the Mahasabha. The Mahasabha don't pay all your bills for all you, right? They don't buy medication for all you. They don't pay all your property tax for all you, right? The Mahasabha is a PNM party group, and I make no apologies for saying it. They can say how much they want that they're not supporting no political party, but we all know differently, okay? And what is even worse, you see that Dharmacharya? That Dharmacharya, remember, he was the one that was forcing all you to go and take that vaccine because his nephew was the CMO, the DMO, sorry, whoever he was, right? He forcing people to take that vaccination. People bear that in mind. They cannot tell all you what to do. It is all your life that all you have to live. It's all you have to face, the groceries, the pharmacies, the gas pump. It's all you have to pay, all your own bills, not them. So do not be swayed by the Mahasabha. And next thing I want to touch on.
When you feel you could give your mouth liberty on particular things, when you feel at the end of the day you could talk on behalf of an organization that have been loyally following a particular party, the next end of the snake that's come and bite you. The people of Trinidad and Tobago, this election that is taking place here is unlike one that was ever seen in this country. Forget 1970 and 1986, we going back to all kind of different statistics here. This election that is taking place within this country is unlike what you have ever seen. People have access to information and they're waiting for you to make any decision for them. They are making decision on their own. What we are going to play here for you is out of a direct disrespect from a body of people that have been loyally supporting a party. Now within the thumbnail, within the thing that we would have placed here on this platform here, is this in a move that raised eyebrows across Trinidad and Tobago. UNC former MP Dinesh Rambally, still the MP, a matter of fact, election and call yet. Dinesh Rambally interviews the PNM Prime Minister right now, selection or not, Stuart Young, on radio and TV on their specific network. Is this a sign of a growing alliance between Jaagriti media and the ruling PNM party? Can this signal Rambally's disillusion with the United National Congress, or a strategic move towards the PNM? A matter of fact, this interview would have break down a lot of things here. Oil must not continue to stroke a beer when a man take up a particular aim, a particular portfolio, and at the end of the day you have no respect for it. You make it, you give them out liberty, and I'm on Sammy all over in every radio station that you had the time to do. And you're realizing what's going on. So when I would have made the call to you the other day and I say, hey, what you were saying, that was something I would have said to you. And it's always something that I keep as a habit, that I record every phone calls that I keep with certain people. Huh. So again, without further ado, I'm going to make no joke here tonight. So there was an interview here with Stuart Young and Dinesh Rambally. Be careful. Be careful what you're saying about people and respecting people within this society. Be careful what you're doing when you try to marginalize certain people and people decide to speak out on certain things. Be careful what you're saying within the public domain. So at the end of the day, I come in with this thing. What I am going to do today is play this entire interview for you to hear and understand. Be careful what you say about specific people within the public domain. Be careful what you're trying to do. All people are asking is respect concerning their views, concerning certain things. And hell, there are certain people is hell-bent on not respecting the views of a particular individual. But if you can't hear, you go feel. And when I say that, I say all. So let me come straight to this interview. You be careful what you're saying within the public domain about people, boy. This is not a joke here again. The full interview, the entire interview, the full clip. And if you want to continue after this, then so be it. I have nothing to say.
आपका धर्म, आपका स्टेशन, टीवी जागृति।
Sitaram, and good evening to you, viewers of TV Jaagriti and listeners of Radio Jaagriti, and the many persons who are locked on through various social media live streams. On behalf of the Secretary General Sri Vijay Maharaj, President General Pandit Krishna Rambally, and the wider Central Executive of the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, I welcome all of you to this episode of Jagaran, The Awakening. As Trinidad and Tobago prepares for general elections in a few days' time, April 28th, citizens and voters are naturally focused on the future, where we are headed, what leadership looks like, and who is best positioned to take us forward. They look at policies, track record, and manifestos. This evening, we are honored to have a very special guest, someone who has stood at the center of the national decision-making, but he joins us in a different light. You see, there's a human story behind every leader, and that's the spirit of this evening's conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, joining me this evening is Prime Minister Stuart Young, Senior Counsel. He described this upcoming election as the beginning of his next chapter, a phrase that invites curiosity, reflection, and of course, questions. This evening, we explore what the next chapter might look like, not just politically, but personally. What drives him? What has shaped his leadership style? And what does he want the people of this country to truly understand about him? Beyond the office and his press briefings, this is an opportunity that we hope we can get to know much more. This isn't a debate, ladies and gentlemen. This is a dialogue, a chance to pause and listen and to connect with a man who continues to shape the national conversation. This time, it is going to be in his own words. So I urge you, pour a cup of tea, chai, get comfortable, and join me for this honest, open, and heartfelt conversation with Prime Minister Stuart Young, Senior Counsel, right here on Jaagriti, The Awakening.
Sitaram, join us on Jaagriti, The Awakening, today, Thursday, 17th April 2025, from 5:30 p.m. for a special in-depth interview with Prime Minister, the Honourable Mr. Stuart Young, Senior Counsel. We'll be tackling the pressing issues of the day and exploring what the Prime Minister calls the next chapter for Trinidad and Tobago. You don't want to miss it. That's Jaagriti, The Awakening, today, Thursday, 17th April 2025, from 5:30 p.m. exclusively on Radio and TV Jaagriti.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining me. We have on set, of course, the Honourable Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honourable Mr. Stuart Young, Senior Counsel. He needs absolutely no introduction. He is well known in the legal profession. He is known in the politics. He is known throughout the landscape of not only Trinidad and Tobago, he is known in this region, CARICOM, and the international landscape. So I want to say immediately to him now that he's a pan lover. And so I want to say, now that the preliminaries are out of the way, I want to say to the Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Stuart Young, welcome to Jaagriti, The Awakening. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. And Sitaram, to you, Dinesh. You will permit me to call you Dinesh, yes, because I knew you long before either of us entered the formal political arena. And most importantly, good evening to your viewers and the listeners and all who have joined us. And in particular, allow me to present my greetings and my respect to Mahasaba through you.
Yes, and Prime Minister, I want to say that, ladies and gentlemen, it's funny that you start off, with our little, intertwining of relationship, going back before the politics, because, ladies and gentlemen, I have practiced law against the Honourable Prime Minister. He's really a tenacious advocate. He does not let up easily. I remember him. He fierce advocate, I must say, and that was in the High Court litigation matters. I think we squared off maybe in a couple matters back then, and I also didn't square off against you in the Industrial Court, but Honourable Prime Minister would have appeared before me as an Industrial Court judge at the Industrial Court, and I know that it was such a pleasure to hear the arguments, to hear the coherence in the arguments, and I know. Maybe, we will get into some of that. Prime Minister, it is clear that you are a very focused and driven person. I mean, that's what I know about you on the personal, side of things and the professional as well. So we will try to unearth some of that today.
No problem.
We wouldn't say who won those High Court matters and what happened with those Industrial Court matters, right? We'll leave that alone, but we'll talk about everything else. But I want to start off with a little bit, if you don't mind, Prime Minister, some, personal background. And so I want you to take us back, to your early years. How would you describe the Stuart Young that, you remember growing up? How would you describe yourself?
Thanks a lot for that, Dinesh. I was born on Henry Street in Port of Spain and grew up in the Diego Martin area for the first part of my life until I reached early adulthood. And it was a very, very happy period. I mean, I was in a neighborhood with a lot of friends. I would spend the afternoons either reading, playing cricket, playing football, the things that we used to do at those stages of life. I was always involved in a lot of sports. So I used to swim competitively. I started karate. I used to play squash, these types of things. But also I had a very enjoyable primary school and secondary school life. And I was fortunate because I come from a mixed heritage, which is one of the wonderful things about Trinidad and Tobago. And I was fortunate to grow up in a setting that was not only a Port of Spain setting, but my mother's family has now come to be known, and it was something that I never expected to become known in the way that it has, is from Debe, down near to Penal. So I would spend, weekends down there and along with my cousins and just growing up in that type of environment. And I was mixed. I was allowed to see different sides of society, different sides of religion. So whilst the majority of that family was of the Muslim persuasion, I had uncles because some of my aunts had married into the Hindu faith and religion as well. So it gave me that understanding and that exposure. So it was a very happy time in Cub Scouts and Sea Scouts later on. Very active. I was always very active. And I did well academically as well, because for some reason that was a gift. And it was very, very enjoyable doing the things you do, pitching marbles, getting stung by Jack Spaniards. I remember a few times a Jack Spaniard nest would fall along my shirt because you're pitching marbles and got up and hit the nest, or playing football, going to retrieve the football. So it was those types of activities, learning how to make kites, breeding fish, going down in the ravines and the drains to catch fish and these types of things. So it was a very normal lifestyle. My father worked very, very hard, and he was the one who managed to teach us about work ethic, and then my mother was caring for us, even though she was a qualified nurse, and that is how I grew up.
Now, just you talk about Jack Spaniard, right? I mean, we all know the saying that, to have people who pelt the Jack Spaniard nest and they run, right? They don't stick around. I remember growing up, we used to have, I don't know if you ever, were encouraged to do this. We would take the Jack Spaniard and we would somehow remove the sting. And then, you would take that and you're like walking around as though you're this brave person, you have this crawling on your hands and, we're going around. So I can very well imagine the fun and stuff, but you mentioned your parents. What values you would think were most important in your household?
Hard work, honesty, and then acceptance of differences. I didn't even understand differences because from an early age, my parents taught my brother and my sister all about respect. And I'll never forget some of the lessons that my father told me, and it stuck with me, and I now understand at this stage of life why I am the way I am. You see, office by definition is temporary. He taught us that at a very early age. He said when you hold office, you're not going to be there permanently. So always respect people, regardless of what station in life they come from. Because one day, you will no longer be that office holder, and it will depend on how you treat people. Also, an appreciation and a respect for different religious cultures and different religions as well as cultures. I am happy now that when I've reached adulthood, that is something that was inculcated in us just by the way we interacted. There was never a scene of any difference. That's why, Dinesh, one of my first calls to Trinidad and Tobago has been one for unity, because I truly, truly believe that if we all function together as Trinbagonians, we will have a great future ahead of us. And now I believe we have that opportunity because it is my honest personal belief.
Now, Prime Minister, I mean, I want to keep to the personal side before we get into the governance or, / political sphere. you have friends and you interact with people, some closer than others, just like any ordinary person. What would your closest friends, I mean, I'm using this platform now, what would your closest friends say about you? Or say that we don't know about you, I should.
What would my closest friends say? They would have said in the past, he's a very fun-loving guy, he's a very easygoing guy, but very focused. That when Stuart makes up his mind, he's determined, he will get things done. They will also tell you, I'm certain, he can't stand injustice. And Dinesh, that kind of played out in how I practiced law as well. And some of what you described in the opening, that's my personality. Once I make up my mind, I'm going to get something done, I drive until I get it done. I think as well, and it is only now as I listen to people describe me, and I heard, for example, my father, but also now I realize my friends, my mother always describe me this way. He has a big heart. And I never understood what they mean, because to me it's just normal. But caring for people and letting things come from this space inside that I genuinely want to help and I genuinely want to make it better. So that is something that I think they describe me as.
So this takes me direct into, I'm sure, qualities like you can't stand inequity or injustice.
Correct.
This would have informed your wanting to get involved in your legal career, I take it. But I want you, in your words, you had a successful legal career before entering full-time politics, right? What would you say drove you to enter the legal arena in the first instance?
That's an easy one. So I like to argue. I like to debate. I wanted to study accounting.
You know, I would never have thought that.
You would never. When we sat opposite each other and in court and with you on the bench. So that is what drove it. I really wanted to do accounting. When I was in secondary school, I'd actually won a gold medal at St. Mary's College in A-level accounting. But then my father said, listen, you need to go off and get a university education. So I said, okay, let me try law, because law is about processing information and arguing. And then I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy university and law school, I'll tell you that, because I'm not a fan of studying, but fortunately I was able to do well. But the practice of law, because the practice of law provides me with the opportunity, one, intellectual challenge, but two, it gives you a real opportunity to help people. So if you recall when you were sitting on the bench at the Industrial Court, the vast majority of my cases at the Industrial Court were always for the unions, fighting for the workers, and I enjoyed that battle. I enjoyed coming up against the senior counsel on the other side for the companies and just fighting for the workers' rights and fighting. And it's amazing. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, I was walking through Belmont, and a guy said, hold on, Prime Minister. And he ran inside and he came out with the khaki polo shirt of the CWU, Communication Workers Union. Yeah. And he said, let me tell you all about him, and described to them a case that fought and won in battle in the Industrial Court just a few years before I entered the world of politics. So law allowed me the opportunity to express, but also, as you would know, Dinesh, it allows you to formulate policy. It allows you to ensure that injustice. So when I started doing public law matters, I really enjoyed that as well. But I do miss the cut and thrust of the battle in the legal gael, because then you have people who will literally at the end of the day say, right, this is the successful argument or that isn't.
So I could vouch for that. Let me vouch for that part. That you have told me from time to time throughout the politics that you miss the courtroom, and I do recall that as you mentioned, Industrial Court. Ladies and gentlemen, you all may not know this, but Prime Minister, I am aware, obviously not just by being a former judge, but being a practitioner of the Industrial Court as well, that you belonged to a chambers that traditionally did a lot of the, not just CWU, but a lot of union matters, right? A lot of union matters, along with some very, I don't want to use the word heavy, but a lot of prominent names. Douglas Mendes, senior counsel, would have led in a lot of those matters.
It was Chancery Chambers, you had Douglas Mendes, but Douglas came after Alan Alexander. And Alan Alexander is one who established and set it up, and then Douglas. And my entrance into there was a funny entrance, that I was doing a case with Douglas as his junior, Mendez, and at the end of the case, he turned and says, Stuart, would you be interested in joining chambers? And that's how I entered those chambers, and it was a fabulous experience because, again, that is where I got my exposure to constitutional law, the public law side, but most importantly, representing the unions and fighting for the workers. And then those chambers have a very, a different type of philosophy, and it was a philosophy that fit with my personal philosophy, which was we have to use our talents, we have to use our ability to help the wider public and population.
So, Prime Minister, I mean, indisputable legal acumen, if I may put it that way. You have a pretty good track record in the legal arena, in your legal profession. What I wanted to get to is that, whether it be illegal or otherwise, throughout all those years, we're not yet in the political spheres yet. Did you have mentors, who would have guided you, you want to mention as we progress this discussion, the personal side of things?
My first mentor is my father, because I looked up to my father and I saw a man who was dedicated to his family, who worked very, very hard, but made time for the family still. So that was what formed my view and my work ethic, I'm certain about. That he would come home after a hard day's work, he would have dinner with the family, we would spend some time chatting, and then he would go to his study to continue doing work. So I think that helped me to formulate my work ethic. And then as I went through life in the legal sphere, I mean, Douglas, as the head of chambers, Douglas Mendez, helped and was one of the mentors. And I've had different people throughout my life who have helped me to shape the person I am today. I mean, in Scouts, I had, when 6 Trinidad Sea Scouts, a guy by the name of Andrew Buckmeyer, we call him Buck. And how Buck taught us all about growing up. You had Father Mendez as well. That was also very formative. So yes, I have had mentors throughout my life, up to the stage of politics.
Right. So I met, and I suppose I could mention this because it is a former judge, and there's no likelihood really of this judge going back anywhere close to the bench. So I will just say that the learned judge indicated to me that, just casual conversation, that your father had spoken to her and was worried about you entering politics. So I just threw that in there because that was a conversation that I stumbled upon in maybe last weekend. Was politics always on your radar? Your life up to that point in time, something, mind you, I could relate to up to a point, right? What nudged you, pushed you, your life direction to get into politics?
The answer to that, Dinesh, is absolutely not. If you had asked me my trajectory up to 2013, beginning of 2014, because I was first sworn in as a temporary opposition senator in March 2014, it was not. My life was, let me build my legal career, hopefully one day I'd get silk, and then my service to country would come. I'd try and become a judge and serve on the judiciary. But life doesn't work out that way, right? So it was in 2014, I had then been asked to do a matter for the then leader of the opposition, Dr. Keith Rowley, and did that matter for him. It was a privileges committee matter. And shortly thereafter, he gave me the opportunity to serve as a temporary opposition senator. Opposition. And I am not one who is going to sit down on the couch at home and complain and say this should be done, that should be done. To me, it presented an opportunity for me to go forth and contribute in law. That's how I saw it. Okay, I thought about it. The Senate was to formulate law. And naively, I said, okay, I'll go forward and I'll serve as a opposition senator and help and assist in the formulation of law for Trinidad and Tobago. It quickly snowballed thereafter. But to be honest, to me, it was a call to serve country. I did hesitate at first because I remember the next conversation that came shortly after is, would you consider electoral politics? I was so concerned about the state of Trinidad and Tobago by that stage, is the 2014-2015 period. I said, you know what? I will make the leap and I will go forward and serve in the realm of politics. And I thought it would be one term, One term turned to 2 terms, and here I am now in a completely different position. But very, very dedicated. What drove me at the time has not changed. In fact, that fire, that flame has become even more. It is to serve Trinidad and Tobago and really to make sure that in this difficult environment that we're in, I give my all to somehow contribute towards a positive future for Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, Prime Minister, you got involved. One term changed to two terms. But this brings me, a lot of people sign up for public service. And I have no doubt the majority have bona fides, genuine intentions. But if you're in public service, it takes a quantum leap, right, for somebody to take the position and say, okay, I am not just continuing in public life. I'm not just going to continue with public service. This is what I'm going to do now. I am going to offer myself for the highest electoral office in the land. And this is the question I want to ask you. Why did you step forward to serve as Prime Minister?
Dinesh, practically for the same reason I just articulated. So, as the country knows now, the PNM caucus went to Tobago for us to discuss the future. Coming out of that retreat that we were having in Tobago, a decision was made. By then the former Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, had announced that he would be retiring before the end of his constitutional term in office. And it came to us, the elected members of the PNM, to decide, okay, well, how do we manage this transition? Who is going to put themselves forward and offer themselves forward to fill that leadership position? And I put my hat in the ring. And I did it because I think that I have been provided with the opportunity to garner a lot of experience that could benefit Trinidad and Tobago, and that I was concerned about. We are in such a precarious position globally, knowing what we had done in the energy sector and how much we depend on the energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago, but also looking forward and seeing a lot of uncertainty into the future. And again, it was pretty much the same decision like I had made when he had asked me, would you be a temporary senator? And I said, well, I'm not going to just sit back and be a person who has the opportunity to put my hat in the ring, to guide, and now it would be to be the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, where I would have the opportunity as a young person, a younger person, to drive the country forward, where I think we need to go with a new vision. Yes. And as it has unfolded, to write a new chapter, not for myself, but for Trinidad and Tobago. So the decision to put my hat in the ring was that once again an opportunity presented itself for me to serve Trinidad and Tobago and to serve at another level in Trinidad and Tobago. So I decided, okay, I will put myself forward.
Prime Minister, before we get into the nitty-gritty of governance, I just want to touch a little bit on leadership and political life. Now, you have clearly worn a lot of caps. Minister of Energy, yes, Minister of National Security, Minister of Communications, amongst others. Those come easily to my mind now. Which one of the portfolios you would say challenged you the most along the way?
All had their various challenges and their different challenges. Ministry of National Security and Ministry of Energy are two extremely challenging portfolios. National Security, if you recall, at the time I was Minister of National Security, the globe was hit with this thing called COVID, that nobody knew what it meant. And we had to take some difficult decisions, but always grounded in science and to protect lives in Trinidad and Tobago. So that was a particularly difficult period. And of course, dealing with crime and the elements of criminality and trying to make Trinidad and Tobago a safer place is not an easy task. But the Ministry of Energy, what was required was not only to rebuild our domestic energy sector and make sure that you get production lined up and keep people in Trinidad investing. But Dinesh, what we may not understand is we are only one of the players in a big global market, which is the energy market. So what I set about to do there was very challenging, but it met with a lot of success in being able to go out there now on a global stage, go out there to the energy conferences across the world, to meet with the leaders of the energy companies across the world and to convince them, hey, Trinidad and Tobago is open for business and we have the infrastructure. Come and invest there. We were able to establish a lot of relationships that will keep us going for the future. And that is no longer a domestic conversation. You know, this is not a competing in a domestic space. So to go out there on this international platform, and you're literally talking to the people who have spent their life in oil and gas, but you very quickly have to become an expert, that you understand the jargon, you understand in the contractual arrangements, where are the spaces and the places that you need to look to make sure Trinidad and Tobago gets a good deal. And I think the grounding in law and how we practice law, that came home to play there, because again, it was a very intellectual space and a space where I am happy to report to Trinidad and Tobago here today. We have rebuilt brand Trinidad and Tobago in the oil and gas sector globally, so much so now that there is a demand for us to come and talk at conferences across the globe, for us to have meetings, just to have the access to the decision makers, for example, in London, in Houston, in The Hague, at the highest levels where they know us now on a first name basis. They know that we have a good reputation. That is the result of a lot of hard work, but at the time, it certainly was not an easy ride. And then also, just to touch on it very briefly, what we managed to do in the geopolitical space, as we know with the cross-border gas, that was not an easy achievement. And now we see another hurdle has come up and put a hurdle in front of us with respect to that. And that is just another chapter. And how do we now write this chapter?
Yes. Prime Minister, I want to touch on those things, a little bit of granular detail. So I'll come back to national security, energy. But Absolutely. In as much as we are talking about these different portfolios, if you could tell us what are some of the wins for you? What do you think, what are some of the wins, but what do you think you could have done better along the way?
Dinesh, you could always look back and see, look, there are areas for improvement, right? But that's hindsight, that's 2020 vision. I am satisfied at this point that I gave my best, I gave my all, and there are a lot of achievements coming out of that. I mean, in the national security arena, there were improvements. As I say, it's a very, very difficult arena. But what brings me some level of satisfaction is as I still go around the country and I move around, I always have men and women of the service, of the different services, whether it be prisons, whether it be the defense force, the police service, the fire service. I come and say, sir, it was a real pleasure serving under you. We got X, Y, and Z done in difficult times. But you see the management of COVID and being part of that team with the Prime Minister, the Minister of Health, and that medical team under the CMO, no matter what anybody says, ultimately, that was a real achievement for Trinidad and Tobago, because the world was dealing with something that was unknown. There was no formula to apply. And I think by and large, we got it right. So to me, that was one of the main high points. But also as the Minister of National Security, with the responsibility to manage the border and keeping our energy sector going, to make sure at no point in time was there any delay in people who needed to come in, to leave, to keep the energy sector going, keeping our rigs in a COVID-free environment, formulating the plans, working with the energy sector companies to keep that going so we would have revenue and there wouldn't be a dip in production. That is a massive achievement. And then, well, in the energy sector, I just referred to a lot of it. There has been a lot achieved. When you look at all of the current production, what is coming, the FID that's supposed to come. I asked for the figures a couple of weeks ago, and we attracted over we made $38 billion in revenue off of what we negotiated and the formulas just in one area. But then the amount of FID that we were able, the final investment decisions and foreign direct investment into Trinidad and Tobago is in the billions of US dollars. Was it a difficult period with production going down and these type of things? The answer is yes. But if you speak to people in the energy sector, I think by and large they will tell you it is in a much better place than it was before, and there is a bright future ahead of us. So that to me is an achievement, but also just having the opportunity to contribute to the future of Trinidad and Tobago.
Along the way, you have mentioned yourself the pandemic. a lot of people, including myself, you needed maybe a space, maybe you needed company, and a lot of us, I mean, you're talking about a worldwide crisis. You needed probably faith, right? Faith in God and faith all around. Spiritual and faith that goes with everything else, that things will get better, right? The silver lining on the dark cloud at the time. What would have been your personal mindset and maybe things that are responsible for keeping you steady? You were Minister of National Security, you were in charge of border, keeping borders closed, all of these things. What would you think at that time, having to do what you were responsible for, would have kept you in that space that would have been, kept you steady?
A sense of duty. So it is still what keeps me going today. It is a sense of duty, and I believe I've been given the privilege to serve Trinidad and Tobago. And also I understood the responsibility. I understood the responsibility at that time that the decisions we were making had a direct impact on lives. The decisions, for example, which of the businesses do we allow to continue? Which of the businesses do we have to close? Never easy decisions, but it was a sense of duty. What kept me going, to be honest, is this is where God needs me right now, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. But I never dwelled on it. I never thought about it. I mean, it is a highly stressful environment, but it is that I am being given I do see it as a privilege and an opportunity to serve, and to serve at those levels that not many get.
So, Honorable Prime Minister, I garner from that chief servant, ultimate instrument, what would you say might be misconceptions that people have of you along the way? We're talking about that same period of time that you are performing all of these, what you deem to be your duty. What do you think would be misconceptions?
It is very easy in that space for things to get personalized, but I always understood it, because at the time, certain persons were putting out my phone number to the world at large and saying, listen, this is Stuart Young's phone number. You want to come back in? He's the person to go after, and this type of thing. And I refused to change my number, and I just accepted it. I tried to respond to as many messages as possible because I knew what needed to be done. And Dinesh, it's interesting. I was leaving church a few weeks ago, and this woman came and she shuffled up right next to my shoulder as I was walking out. She said, Prime Minister, I have something to tell you. I said, yes, please go ahead. She said, I had disliked you. I say, okay, but why did you? She said, because during COVID, my son was outside, and I thought you were the person that was preventing me from being with my loved one. She said, but can I tell you something? I now have full respect for you, because now, when my emotions have gone down and I now understand and I've thought about it, I understood what you were doing, and I want to thank you. And I've had experiences throughout. I had another one on a plane about a year ago coming back from Suriname, and the air stewardess came and she said, may I tell you something? I said, sure. She said, you may not remember me, but you allowed my fiancé to come back. I said, yes, I do remember your fiancé, and I told her what the country was that he was in and that he was allowed back and that they got married. I asked how the family was going. So it is now that people afterwards understand what was being done at the time, and they now come and they seek me out and say, listen, yesterday I was walking in my constituency in Belmont, and this gentleman invited me in the house. He said, listen, you need to come and meet two people. And when I walked into the kitchen, it was two older people. He said, they're from Winnipeg, and they're going back tonight. And the woman smiled, and she said, Stuart Young. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, let me tell you, I was in Trinidad at the time of COVID. And then when you close the borders, I had to be here for X months. And every day, I used to watch you on TV and watch what you say. And she said, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because I know what you and the Prime Minister, the Minister of Health, and the team and the government did. And you all did a fabulous job. So those are the types of experiences.
And I dare say at this time that, true leaders have to take sometimes the unpopular decisions, but it is in the best interest of the population. Prime Minister, I want to get into some of the governance issues now, but let's just take things down a notch, right? Momentarily, of course. And I have the technical team. This is something is a softer touch of things that because we're going to get into some serious matters. So there's a recording that they have. Maybe we could play a few seconds of it, the music recording. I just want to play this.
A man with energy, always checking for me. Don't let up at all, let's answer when we call. Security.
With ear can go wrong, he always vibrant and he's strong, energetic and he young, security.
Right, thank you, technical team. I want to ask you, did you have anything to do with the lyrics of that song?
Absolutely not. In fact, when it came out, I was people have been asking me about the song, and what I was just relating to someone is, when I play it back in my mind, it is actually an activist and someone close to me in my constituency said, listen, I have somebody who wants to write a song for you. Can we go ahead? I said, yeah, by all means, go ahead. And it was only recently when I'm hearing this Stuarty and the children are singing, she said, well, that is the song. And then I discovered it was written by Protector. And it has just taken off, Dinesh. I mean, everywhere I go, and especially amongst the young children, and I find it very endearing, and I enjoy it. And when I see the look on their faces, and these children are, look, it's Prime Minister Stuarty. And even in Tobago, I was walking the other day and had that experience.
Well, I like, it's catchy, vibrant. I heard it was vibrant, energetic,
correct,
strong. Young, right? So I had to ask if you had anything to do with the lyrics. But as I say, and we have, I think, 2 pictures that we saw floating around on Facebook. These are some pictures of what purports to be a doll. Now, so we have this Honorable Prime Minister sweeping Stuart. I don't know. I think I saw this on your Facebook page. Which one you prefer? You're asking citizens which one you prefer, sweeping Stuart, and let's go to the next picture. Stuarty, right? Trinidad and Tobago, Stuarty. Well, I know you love the pan, and you have made that quite clear, patently, pellucid, that look, pan is your thing, right? But I mean, these are the lighter things. People are obviously, they are getting to know you, to know a different, softer side because of your campaign, I mean that song, and then some people think that you have this, maybe things that they didn't see before being projected, they are now seeing for the first time. So I just wanted to tease you with some of those that we saw floating around on Facebook. But getting on with this side of the interview, Prime Minister, people are seeing things for the first time, yes, and the softer side, but some think that you are untested. Some people think that you are inexperienced politically in order to hold this top office. And how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I've heard that narrative, I've heard that argument, let's put it that way, and quite honestly, I don't put too much value on it, because every first-time Prime Minister is the first time you're being Prime Minister. So where did you get the experience as Prime Minister? But I think what the population has seen, and what we've been discussing here for the past few minutes, is the experience that I've gained during my time in office, the type of portfolios I've held, the type of experience. And let's not forget, being Minister in the office of the Prime Minister, it exposed me to a lot of areas, not just limited to the specific portfolio of national security or the portfolio of energy. So experience-wise, that has no water. It holds no moment, because the truth is I have gotten a lot of experience, not only in the politics, but also in the management of national issues. If people cast their mind back, who is it that had to come and address the nation, for example, when we had that earthquake in 2018? Who is it that addressed us when we had the flooding, the unprecedented flooding, and these types of things? So the experience is there. The answer is, have I been Prime Minister before? Obviously, the answer is no. But then when you look at it, when any Prime Minister became Prime Minister for the first time, it is the first time. You look around the world as well, and you would see similar type of situations. I mean, I smile when I first heard that argument, and I thought of my comrade Prime Minister in Grenada, young Dickon Mitchell. Prior to him being Prime Minister, not many people knew about him, but it was the same sort of thing. You just kind of rise and you're given this opportunity. So I wouldn't place any weight on that whatsoever.
Now, I mean, what you have explained there, I mean, it speaks to a sort of philosophy. It speaks to, maybe how you handle criticism moving forward. I mean, our political environment is very, very heated. It's contentious. In some spheres, it is outright cantankerous, right? How do you, Prime Minister, deal with managing, public criticism, inclusive of the, if I may say, the hate that is spewed sometimes in social media?
Listen, public criticism is par for the course. That is part of what comes when you're in public life. I will listen to public criticism because I don't believe that I know everything. So if there is public criticism that is constructive criticism that could help me to improve, to help me to do a better job as Prime Minister, I am open to it. Social media is something that is good and bad. The bad side of social media really has the potential to affect persons, and I just don't let it affect me. Because as far as I'm concerned, that is not real, and especially as we start to go down the road of AI, you go down the road of utilizing what we know as bots and trolls and these types of things, it is best just to ignore that. At the end of the day, I have hard decisions to make, I have easy decisions to make. And I am satisfied that when I make decisions, I make it for the betterment of Trinidad and Tobago, and that's how I sleep at night. I have absolutely no problem with being in leadership and dealing with the difficulties as well as the good side of what leadership brings. So the social media, the hate, the dispute, I mean, I have a place that you unfortunately have come from, and I use the word unfortunately as my word, not yours. You have some politicians on the opposition side who say the nastiest of things, who make all sorts of derogatory comments that unfortunately are not grounded in truth, maybe grounded in misinformation, and then even some of it is racist and these types of things. But to me, that's on them, that's their responsibility, that is their choice, and I just deal with it. I just get on with doing my job.
Now, Prime Minister, you speak of the next chapter. Before we explore that concept and what it means, there are a lot of people, no doubt political opponents and non-political opponents, but just citizens. They are saying that you yourself now, you are going up for seeking a mandate for Prime Ministership. You are, however, campaigning after 10 years of being in government. I mean, voters are disenchanted. What would you say, Prime Minister, to those who are of this view that you have had a chance, 1 term, 2 terms, and now you're seeking to be Prime Minister, but you have been there and they're disenchanted? And there are issues that we could probably touch on, but how would you address them that their umbrella statement or view is that you had your chance and now you're coming to tell us, give you a mandate to be Prime Minister?
Well, the first thing I'll say is I am asking exactly as you ended for the mandate now to be Prime Minister. When you're Prime Minister, the buck stops with you. You are the person who is making the decisions. You are the person in charge. That is a very different role to being in a supporting position where you're giving advice and you're assisting. But people, Trinidad and Tobago, what has happened in the last 9.5 years is a need to stabilize Trinidad and Tobago. We came in at a difficult time. As we began to, as the economy was stabilized and as it began to grow, COVID hit us. And that's something that we must not forget. And COVID set the world back. COVID almost collapsed economies across the world. So Trinidad and Tobago is no different. And now we're on a rebuild. So now Trinidad and Tobago is in a stable position, but you're looking at what's happening globally. You're looking at how decisions being made in particular countries across the world are having a very disruptive nature on the whole world. You're seeing that certain decisions, for example, tariffs, how it has upset and has the potential to upset international trade and rising inflation, rising costs. So the world is in a very volatile state, and that is why I'm putting myself on, and that's why I'm saying that this is the best choice, because you have someone with a team that whilst we have innovative ideas and we have youth behind us, we have the experience. I have the 9.5 years experience of managing through difficult tasks, but also having the experience of dealing with the geopolitics and making sure Trinidad and Tobago and CARICOM come out ahead. These are the things that are going to make the difference. In the next 5 years, we are seeing the volatility of the world. The two largest economies in the world, United States and China, are in trade, almost a trade war, and all of the countries in the world feed off of those two countries. So you need to decide, okay, well, who is best placed to manage that? Who has the energy, who has the vigor, who has the intelligence, who has the experience? So it is not that, oh, you've had 10 years, you had your chance, and of course you're entitled to think that. What I'm asking you to look at is the current state of play. You're seeing oil prices that we depend on literally lose $12 US a barrel overnight. And the projections now are is going to stay at that $65 to $63 value, whereas we had budgeted at 77, 80, which at the time was the prediction. So it shows you how volatile the world is. Who is it that is best placed to go and just sit and negotiate the best for Trinidad and Tobago and in the CARICOM region? And that's what I'm putting myself forward for. And with a team that has the experience, but also has youth with some experience like myself, and then you're seeing some young, bright people still putting themselves forward. So honestly, yes, we have had 10 years. Those 10 years have had its ups and downs and certain difficulties, but now where Trinidad and Tobago is poised in the global environment with all of this volatility, we really need to decide who is best placed to guide Trinidad and Tobago to take on the difficulties ahead, to not be deterred, to not make the errors that you hear. You cannot, as a leader of a country, go out and literally use defamatory language and derogatory language about other world leaders, no matter what you think of them. And then to do that to your closest neighbor, how does that then upset the space that we're in? We've seen how that worked out before. You have to have a level of diplomacy, and most importantly, Dinesh, it comes down to respect. Who respects you? What is your reputation? And what is your credibility? Those are the measurements of a leader who you must choose, Trinidad and Tobago, to take our country forward in very turbulent waters. And I am asking for the mandate to be able to do that on your behalf.
Now, Prime Minister, we also have, in local parlance, you hear from time to time, many times, right? Once there is a change in portfolios, it is part of local parlance now. They say, man, the shift, they just change and they shuffle the same deck of old cards, right? One of your first acts as Prime Minister was to reshuffle a couple of ministers in the cabinet. How do you justify that? What is the explanation for doing that?
Well, I assume the two main portfolios that the population would look at in that instance, what I did was national security as well as the Ministry of Finance. Both of the previous ministers served well. Both of the previous ministers did yeoman service, and I thank them. But I think as we write the new chapter in those two particular portfolios, we needed a bit of shift. We needed a bit of change in dynamic. We have this stable platform, for example, with the economy, but you would see the choice was to bring in somebody who could literally hit the ground running, because it is a difficult portfolio. Minister Imbert did a great job in the circumstances we faced, but I just felt, okay, now let us bring in someone who has guided many a Minister of Finance before and understands Trinidad and Tobago, because when I was looking down the road, I knew we had to make a change in that area. So that explains that one. And then on the national security front, there was a change, and that change is bringing in somebody who now has an opportunity, coming with experience. Minister Hines had experience as a police officer as well, but Minister Gonzalez has a more youthful approach to it. And then I just felt that the time was right for changing that portfolio. People said, well, okay, well, you shuffle the cards, the same deck, and why you did that if you call the election the next day and these. It is because I was determined to tell Trinidad and Tobago we're going to write a new chapter. These are some of the changes that have been made with the promise that they hold, and that if we work together, we will be able to achieve a lot sooner that we want some of the changes that need to be made.
Now, Prime Minister, there continues to be, I say continue because it has been there, it is not disputed that crime is a major issue. I myself, when I previously, not too long ago, right, held a political cap, would have criticized the government about its inability to grapple with crime. I mean, now that you are seeking this mandate, how do you respond to these criticisms of, people saying that the government is unable to deal with crime? That's one. And two, I mean, in that, I suppose, inherent in responding to that, what would you do differently?
Great question again, Dinesh, and is a legitimate question. I mean, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have every right to be concerned. I am concerned. Any right-thinking citizen, any law-abiding citizen must be concerned about the whole idea of crime and criminality. Fortunately, yesterday we launched our manifesto, the PNM's manifesto, and it is there for all to look at, to study, and you will see the initiatives that we have put forward to deal with crime. So, for example, the elite vetted unit. This is not a small vetted unit. This is literally an elite unit, and you read about it. It works. And that would immediately start to change the landscape and how you respond to crime. Crime is not an overnight. There's no overnight solution and fix to crime. What we require is strategic leadership. So you'd also see that we intend to simplify the process for appointing of a commissioner of police. We had attempted it before. We did simplify it somewhat in 2015. It was challenged in court. Just the triggering process was taken out. But now, with the experience that we have, we're going to change it again to simplify it, because you need a properly appointed, a permanent commissioner of police in place, and what you're going to be looking for in that space. And you would see some of the initiatives there, the continued use of technology and the updating of technology. But honestly, it's not only in the national security space. What we did by the introduction of a Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, that ministry will begin to have even more effect than it's had in the last 4 years of its establishment, getting things up off of the ground, in that it will help a lot of disenfranchised youth who have a choice to make. Do I go down the road of crime and criminality, or hey, there are opportunities being put forward to me here, options here for me to go and make an honest living and to get involved in positive things. Just the reintroduction of the youth camps to try and capture some of our young people and their innovation and their potential, and to give them that hope and the opportunity to become law-abiding citizens, as opposed to what you're facing out there with the attraction of some trying to attract them to the life of criminality. So it is a multifaceted approach. Dinesh, we have the experience, and we're going to go after it. But one thing you'll be assured of, you don't have a prime minister who's going to sit down, negotiate with criminals. You don't have people. You can't be part of the solution if you're part of the problem. So you're not seeing people being put forward to the population who there are question marks over as to what was happening when they were in service, are they under investigation, and these types of things. Crime is real. Crime is something we're also going to tackle frontally, and as I've given the population the assurance, and I give it here again, it is a place I'm going to place a lot of priority and a lot of my personal fight and effort to make sure we get the best fighting chance to peg back that criminality.
Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Prime Minister has been speaking, and we are on the cusp of almost an hour. So maybe I can ask the technical team to just do a little promo and allow him to, we drink a little, sip a little water, and then we get back into it, because I want to move to something else, Honorable. And I take it that you do have an extra few minutes with us.
I would love to spend a few extra minutes with you.
Okay, so we go to a quick break.
Sitaram. Join us on Jagaran, The Awakening, today, Thursday, 17th April 2025, from 5:30 p.m. for a special in-depth interview with Prime Minister, the Honourable Mr. Stuart Young, Senior Counsel. We'll be tackling the pressing issues of the day and exploring what the Prime Minister calls the next chapter for Trinidad and Tobago. You don't want to miss it. That's Jagaran, The Awakening, today, Thursday, 17th April 2025, from 5:30 p.m. exclusively on Radio and TV Jaagriti.
And pleasant good evening again to viewers and listeners. This is a program, of course, we are privileged to have the Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Stuart Young, Senior Counsel. Honorable Prime Minister, we get back straight into it because time is running out on us. You have focused largely on energy security. I mean, I have watched on inside the Parliament and out of the Parliament. And particularly in the last 3 years, I would say that you have focused on energy security. I mean, this is an opportunity to tell us why you continue to place such importance on it. And I mean, some people think that maybe too much is being placed on it. Can we do without it?
Dinesh, the answer to that is quite simply no. Trinidad and Tobago is very fortunate to be in the position that we're in, that we're what we call a hydrocarbon-based economy, where we have the resources of oil and gas. It is this government's policy and will continue to be our policy in the next term to focus a lot of emphasis and effort there, whilst looking towards diversification, for example, into the maritime sector, and we could touch on that after. Energy security is what brings us the type of revenue that we need to continue living the type of lifestyle that we've become accustomed to. But what people may not realize is unless you negotiate the contracts, especially in gas production today, it could take 3 to 5 years for that then to bring production in place. So you constantly have to be working on it to keep things consistent. And what we faced in 2015 is absolutely no new contracts had been negotiated. You're having a decline. So you're literally at the starting line where it was already declining, whereas what you should have been doing is making sure you kept steady production, and not by utilizing incentives. So a lot of focus was put in there, and again, it is irrefutable. The renegotiations that we did, for example, for the price of our gas, have earned us just from only from two of the gas suppliers, $38 billion that we would have never have seen in Trinidad and Tobago. You have to put that type of emphasis there because it is what our economy thrives on. 80% of our exports are from the energy sector. But what you've seen happen, and that emphasis and that work I've done that you referred to, Dinesh, over the last 3 years, is to make sure, as you're seeing now, all of these projects, the SIP project, the Mentor project, Ginger project, the Coconut project, just as some of them, the work that has been done by Shell, the work that has been done by BP, the work that was done by Woodside, now you have Perenco. So it is a lot of effort that needs to be done just to manage, because we have world-class infrastructure here. We're in the top 10 producers of LNG in the world. And yes, we've had a declining production, but we still have capacity, and that is part of the conversation I've been having globally. We have capacity in our plants. Once we get access to that additional gas, we can produce these commodities that are needed. Energy security feeds directly into food security. We are the largest exporter in the world of ammonia. That is the base of fertilizer. So we play a very important role, and it is to keep that sector going, because all of this money was invested by persons outside of Trinidad and Tobago into Trinidad and Tobago, into these plants, giving us the opportunity to convert our God-given resources into revenue for our people in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, what we managed to do in the renegotiation of Atlantic LNG has never been done anywhere else in the world. And then you were on the other side of the political divide. I have said that 100 times over. And if that were not true, by now somebody would have said, hey, it isn't true. It is a fact, and that is something we have to be proud of in Trinidad and Tobago, because what it's done is it's given us another few decades of opportunity to continue in this space where it is necessary. People will need the LNG, they'll need the ammonia, they will need these products that we can supply to the world.
No, I'm grateful for the engagement, but my fear, Honorable Prime Minister, is I know you could take us real far with this energy discussion. So I want to curtail the energy discussion issue here now, because I want to go to something that I feel we should hear from you with respect to, which is that young people really feel somehow that government is disconnected from them. They feel that there are no opportunities for them. Sometimes, and you hear it especially now, right, which is elections time, that, my disenchantment, so to speak, is so high. I'm not sure I'm going out to vote because it's same old, same old. I mean, you can use this opportunity, and I too would like to hear what is your plan for the young people, that they will be, invested, not only in elections, but invested in terms of governance and keeping their own interest on what is going on with government, what is going on with the running of the country, and so they will know how they can contribute as well.
Thank you very much for that, Dinesh. Our youth are one of the most critical components in the future success of Trinidad and Tobago. It is an area that I am very focused on. And when you read our manifesto, if you get an opportunity, you will see. So we are being innovative. One of the things I've looked at is, you see, our culture, our arts, and that entertainment industry. We have such a vibrant culture in Trinidad and Tobago, and so much potential and so much that we can do in that space. And I understand now that our young people are more inclined to entrepreneurship and being able to work in that vibrant economy. This year alone, for example, for something like Carnival, we earned $680 million in revenue. So that is one of the spaces that we're going to focus on to allow our young people opportunity. The Ministry of Youth Development and National Service is going to be expanded in terms of the number of people we can take into the programs, because we see the success of these programs. I have heard the cries of the young people. We are offering options, for example, with housing. Came out with the 3,000 lots of land. That is a start. The Minister of Housing last night was on television talking about the type of housing that we will provide for persons who are earning around minimum age. So we're hitting it at different levels, but it is going to be low-income housing, and not turn around something like Victoria Keys into luxury apartments that was done by the last administration. We are also, for young people, we recognize not everybody is academically inclined. Everybody at the end of the day needs a plumber. We need a joiner. We need somebody who can do masonry, somebody who can do carpentry, somebody who can do an electrician. And there is huge potential in those areas. I want to change the culture. This is not about academic success alone. So we're going to focus on those areas in our secondary schools, so that our children understand that you're no less successful because you didn't go on to become a lawyer or go on to become an engineer or a doctor. No, you are a top-class plumber, you're a top-class electrician that can go anywhere in the world and earn a very good, not even salary, earn a good living for yourself because you work for yourself. I am calling young people to arms. Do not become complacent. Do not say, well, all politicians are the same. I'm not voting for them. They don't know how we feel. They don't know how we think. That is not true. You have a young cabinet with a lot of youthful thinking. We're willing, I am certainly willing, and I know my colleagues as well are, to engage, to listen to your ideas. We may have more experience than you do, and to work with you to build a better future for you and for your children to come. There is a lot of potential in Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to be looking in the next 5 years. When I talk about writing a new chapter and the next chapter, that requires you to turn up with your pens to assist us to do it, because it's your Trinidad and Tobago as well.
Now, Prime Minister, I hear you on that. You're talking about, of course, infrastructure, that when it comes to training and equipping, empowering youths with skills that they can find employment and stuff. But it leads into the obvious question now, moving forward. What are your plans for stimulating growth in the economy? Because that is what everybody wants to know.
So, Dinesh, we have already provided a stable base for our oil and gas sector, that part of the economy. In fact, if you speak to the service companies, they will tell you that This is the most work and the most activity they've seen in decades. That has a spill-on effect into the economy. We are going to focus heavily on the maritime sector because Trinidad and Tobago is geographically blessed. We're south of the hurricane belt. Our Gulf of Paria has natural deepwater harbors. We have put in our applications to the EMA and we're hoping to get approval soon to build our 2 Panamax dry dock facilities in La Brea, which don't exist. We're perfectly placed. You come through Panama, on your way down to South America, you could stop in, have your ships repaired there, etc. We have procured a temporary floating dry dock for our carry dock facility in Chaguaramas to also provide for vessels of just over 100 meters, I think up to 150 meters, ship repairs there. The maritime sector is a big part of our plans for diversification and is a Forex earner. We are looking at, for example, at the Point Leases, a 24/7 bonded warehouse. We spent taxpayers' money on building the Phoenix Park, which is close to Industrial Estate, which is a state-of-the-art estate, which is close to Point Leases. So that is one of the areas. But also, as I just said, the arts, the culture, that is another area that we see huge potential in. And also stimulation of the economy is we're looking to see with our younger people, but also the small and medium-sized enterprises, what is it that we can do through efficiency to help you to stimulate. Agriculture is another area. We have a lot of emphasis and focus on the utilization of technology, for example, in agriculture, that you would be able to, we're going to build a virtual marketplace that the farmers don't have to worry, who am I going to send my produce to? You just worry on producing it. You will go to this virtual marketplace, say, okay, I expect to have X number of pounds of tomato, of lettuce, and then on the other side in that virtual marketplace are the groceries, the restaurants, the hotels, and even some for export. So all you have to do is focus now on producing the best produce, not worry about a marketplace that's going to take it, pay you for it, and you have less wastage. So we're going to be using a lot of technology and a lot of innovation to stimulate certain areas of the economy.
Now, Prime Minister, you mentioned, well, before I say what you had mentioned in that last response, I want to tell you, and to be very candid, we, myself, and even management here, we have held programs over the period of successive budget debates. Mm-hmm. And there has been one sore point, I mean, constructive criticism, of course, some political flavor, but constructive nonetheless. The sore point being Forex issue. So you mentioned, Forex earner in your last response. I mean, let us deal with it on its own. Do you have a plan? And if you do, what is your plan to deal with this Forex issue?
So tomorrow you should hear announced out of the Ministry of Finance a decision that was taken today at Cabinet. You would have seen that one of the first things I did as Prime Minister was calling the central bank, calling the Forex dealers, the banking industry, to tell them that we need to find ways. We accept, let's start by understanding that our level of earning of foreign exchange has dropped. So whereas you may have 20 million before, you're now dealing with 15 million. And it is how do we distribute and allocate that 15 million. So we met, and then after that meeting, the Minister of Finance remained engaged, and he has produced now a report that we're currently taking a look at. But today, the Cabinet took a decision, and he will announce it tomorrow, but I guess I could give a precursor that we are introducing through the Exim Bank for small and medium-sized enterprises, for SMEs, we're introducing an allocation to make it a certain amount of foreign exchange, up to 50,000 US, for businesses that qualify, in addition to what your banks, your commercial banks may give you, and that will be distributed through the commercial banks. So whereas before you may have only been able to get access to, you need to pay a bill for 50,000 US, you may have only been able to get access to 50,000 at your bank. Now this initiative that we've come up with, the Exim Bank will provide the additional 50,000. So that is one of the areas we're going to be dealing with Forex that will be announced and the details given tomorrow. Another area that I told them is a priority item, and we believe there's a potential solution, is for the average person walking into a bank to be able to get the foreign exchange you need. You're not going to be able to walk in and get tens of thousands, but to get those thousands or hundreds of dollars that you need, for example, to go on your vacation, to send for your children, for your grandchildren, and these types of things. So we are focusing on it, and there's a different way of thinking about it. We're being very solution-oriented, but under the constraints of what we have. We can't give what we don't have.
I'm definitely looking forward to hearing that and details tomorrow. So I'll spare you now, and we hear tomorrow, and probably we get back in touch with you, right?
No problem.
As we quickly take it along, Honorable, many unions, I mean, you yourself, we started off this program with a little historical background of your upbringing and your professional upbringing. You represented unions. Here it is, you are in the politics now. Many unions have become politically aligned. I'm not saying they were not before. I'm just saying that it seems as though that you see a lot of them politically aligned now. The alignment doesn't seem to be, favorable in terms of the, your party. They are being politically aligned somehow, one way or the other, not necessarily with your vision. Does that put any political pressure on you and your ability to negotiate with them moving forward?
Absolutely not. I mean, that is a fact of life. But let's start by dealing with the narrative. You're seeing many unions have become politically aligned. The truth is, Dinesh, what you're seeing is the leadership of some unions. So the officers who are in leadership positions. I know the trade union movement. I could tell you, for example, when I was walking down on the ground in Skinner Park for the semi-finals of the Calypso competition, many OWTU workers say, comrade, don't study the leader and the leadership. We not in that stupidness and that type of conversation. So let the country not be fooled by persons who are in leadership positions in these unions, taking a position, aligning themselves. The hundreds of members who make up, the hundreds of individuals who make up their membership are not so inclined necessarily. And in fact, this is a plea to their sensibility. You know that what you're hearing and what you're hearing being promised will lead the country to bankruptcy, to the IMF, to devaluation of the dollar. That is a fact. You're still asking the question, as we all are, if I'm going to provide you with 10% as the opening provision, and that is going to cost the country $7 to $8 billion, where is that money coming from? It is not a real plan to say, I have a plan. That just doesn't work that way. So I'm not concerned about these few union heads taking positions. And what I told the public servants is, we have put a 5% off on the table. Your back pay is waiting there for you. That will cost the country $3.5 billion and a recurrent cost every year of about $930 million, which is what we could afford. Obviously, if this government and me as Prime Minister could say, hey, we could afford 10% or 12%, there is absolutely no reason why you wouldn't do it. The fact that we haven't done it is because it cannot be afforded. And I have to be responsible. The government that I lead is going to be responsible and not make promises that can't be kept. We're not going to hold out a carrot and stick that ultimately will end up in you losing your job, because when the IMF comes sailing in here to rescue Trinidad and Tobago, the first thing they're going to do is cut the number of public servants. So don't fall into that trap. And with respect, I know personally, Dinesh, at least one of those leaders who has burned pictures of me in a barrel and these types of things. And I know he was the same one in 2015 who was marching against Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa. And this country doesn't have short memories. And one must question, well, what is the deal there? Because for there, it is always about a deal. That same union was given the opportunity, patriotic, to restart the refinery. They couldn't. We bent over backwards to try and do it. But if the initiative we're currently pursuing with the Nigerian firm Oando comes to fruition, as I pray and hope it does, it is going to provide the jobs for those members of the union who were formerly employed there before, because they're going to need a workforce to do it. So these are the realities versus the pie in the sky promises. But with respect to your particular question, I'm not concerned about it politically, because those are just a few individuals who hold themselves and they are the leaders. It does not mean the membership is following them.
Now, Prime Minister, I had wanted to myself, that is, keep a little bit away from the cut and thrust of the politics, right? But in as much as we seem to be going there, let me ask this question. I mean, you have indicated in your last response, for those who think that, they want to go the route of the IMF, you have spoken, I've seen it on the platform, I've read it in the papers, you have been warning about a devaluation, and you have posited clearly right out there on the platforms that one of your political opponents, if they should win, that is the direction in which they are going. You also spoke about a 15-to-1 ratio, right? I mean, can you tell us more about that and how you arrived at that?
I arrived at that figure by discussing it with the Ministry of Finance and the economists. Because I know that if you're coming with a bill for Trinidad and Tobago of $18 billion, where we're already in a deficit, you have to finance that somehow. And the only way you get there, because I know what the country's projected revenues are. I know how much it is we can expect to afford, and we cannot afford 14. We definitely can't afford 14%. We can't afford a 10% wage increase. If you do that, the only place you end up is with the IMF. And when you read the IMF reports, every single year, they say, float the dollar, float the dollar, float the dollar. In fact, you heard the political leader of another party say in 2019, that is our plan, to float the dollar, get rid of this holding of the dollar. What we've done, our PNM policy, is to defend at 680, if it moves to 690 to 1, because we know the devastating effects it will have on the lower, in particular, income earners immediately. If we go to 15 to 1, which is what you're looking at, your salary of $1,000 only has the earning capacity the next day of $500 or less. All cost of goods, everything imported, goes up. That would be disastrous, but that is the only route you could go when you come and say, well, I'm going to give you $20 billion in goodies, I'm going to cut revenue, I'm going to get rid of VAT, which is $1.5 billion, I'm going to cut income tax on corporations by 5% when they've not asked for that. That is a loss of almost the same $1.5, almost $2 billion. So when you're reducing your revenue, but you're carrying up your expenditure, every sensible household knows it just doesn't work like that in reality. The 15 to 1 is because the float that they see to be able to go in that area is between a minimum of 12 and a high of 18. So you're looking at a midpoint of 15. And understand, once you float, it completely loses control. You no longer have any control to bring it back down.
Now, Honorable Prime Minister, I have seen very recent the dissemination of your political party's manifesto, election manifesto. And it's an important document. It's an important statement that people look forward to. I mean, we are running out of time, but I had wanted to ask you, if you can summarize, your plans as stated in that manifesto, how it is expected to transform the economy.
Absolutely. When you look at it, it was a very careful study after 9.5 years of experience of how the country is, how you run the economy, what is coming in the future, of what can be delivered. So you see in the public sector, efficiency. So let's take the pensions as an example. Some pension earners in the public service may take years to get their pension. We need to find a way, using the technology that exists and the programming that exists, to reduce that immediately. The same thing with grants that affect persons that here will have lost a file. Those are meaningful changes to people's lives to stimulate the economy. It is what we're doing in the oil and gas sector, and also moving our energy sector into renewables and these areas. You'd see there is also going to be a focus on sport tourism. There's going to be a focus on some tourism projects, especially in Tobago. Those stimulate the economy. Then what you're seeing is exactly what I was saying, working with the SMEs and the medium-sized businesses as well. But then in the maritime sectors, I've alluded to a short while ago, that is also another area that we expect that has a great potential. And you're seeing it. So on the service side of the oil and gas, now that we have more vessels coming in to go out and do the seismic, to go out and lay pipelines and these types of things, it stimulates a whole ecosystem, because when they come into port, they need supplies, they need workforce, and all of these different types of knock-on effects. So Dinesh, it really is realistically identifying what are the areas we can work on, but you'll also see we're going to put a lot of focus and emphasis on wellness. For example, with our young children, we all now know they're under a lot more stress. The social impact of social media, the cyberbullying and these types of things, that in the school system, we're going to provide psychological programs and those experts that they can talk to just to help with the whole wellness. I just came from a tour of the Sandy Grande Hospital, and I was extremely happy with what I saw there, with the digital integration of patient records and just how well integrated those types of things are, that now you can say, okay, well, these are the prescriptions that are needed. So those are the types of things that will help with the efficiency. And really it is to make life a lot more efficient. As I said, the agricultural side, I see a big potential in. So I encourage people, if you're really interested, take a look at the manifesto. We've broken it out in sections where you could literally take a look at, see what attracts you, and then you dive down into detail.
Prime Minister, we are basically almost out of time. I want to, before I ask my final question to you, I would want to give you the opportunity to give us your closing comments, and tailored, of course, to what you are saying out there on the platform, what you have basically, premised a lot of your arguments on today. Basically writing the new chapter. You are encouraging people to join you, and citizens to join you in writing this new chapter. So what are your closing comments to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago?
Thank you very much, Dinesh. It feels like when you're back as being a judge and asking me to sum up my arguments. Trinidad and Tobago, I honestly believe, have faith in our population. I have faith that you will make the sensible decision, because you know when you're looking at not only what is going on here in Trinidad and Tobago, but the global effects of what we are facing as a small twin island state, we need stability. You need leadership that is able to stand up to those who may want to push us in different directions, but also leadership that has shown that they have Trinidad and Tobago's best interests at heart. You need leadership that has the energy, that has the youth, that has the vibrance, and the innovation to find solutions in a very dynamic world. And what I'm asking you to do is to look at what has happened in the last 9.5 years versus the 5 years before that. But now look at the potential. Look at what we are offering to you to take us forward. This new chapter really is a call to Trinbagonians. It's a call for all of us to join together to get our country in a unified position. We haven't had an opportunity like this in a long time, and you have now a young leader putting himself forward, who I honestly believe, has shown a track record of competence and ability, surrounded by a team that is poised and ready to take us forward. So I'm asking you, think about it very carefully, go out, I'm going to say it, go out and vote, and make sure you vote for the right choice, because it is going to have a detrimental effect. Now is not a time for experimentation with a coalition government that you've seen fragment very quickly on the two previous occasions. It happened in 1986, it happened again in 2010. Now is not a time to experiment with your children's future and our grandchildren's future. Dinesh, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share these moments with you this evening.
Now, just one clip. Technical team, let us show this clip before I conclude. It's a clip that, it was an interaction that I know I myself was involved in it with you, and I was very impressed with it, and I think maybe we can close the political discussion on this. Okay. This is a clip that they have.
See, I'm a strong believer that we are all Trinidadians, and that only when we are unified as a people, we will always have differences of opinions, but it is only when we are unified as a people we will experience the full potential of our great country, which we all have to participate in. There are not many countries in the world that someone such as myself can have the privilege to participate in as important a religious ceremony as this one I've been fortunate to participate in here tonight. And for us as Trinidadians and Trinbagonians to understand and appreciate that, I think would be the first good step for us to understand how fortunate we are here in Trinidad and what we've been able to experience as Trinidadians.
So Prime Minister, this really was to butter you up because I have a serious bone to pick with you, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, of course, that was an interaction we had with Honorable Prime Minister. At that time, you were acting Prime Minister and joining in Ganesh Utsav festivities. And so, I mean, I have seen myself, and people would have seen your discussion and your views on unity over a period of time coming up to this election. So that was to butter you up because I have a serious bone to pick with our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Stuart Young, Senior Counsel. Coming into this interview today, my frame of mind went a little bit, as we would say, Trinidadians, it went south. Because I saw that there was something circulating. Apparently, you would have had an interview with somebody today, maybe is a media influencer, social media influencer. And one of the questions they asked the Prime Minister was, and this is really home, it hits home with me, you know. They asked you, who do you prefer, Superman or Batman? And your answer was Superman. How could you say Superman?
What, you a Batman fan?
Of course. Do you appreciate that Superman has powers and Batman doesn't have any powers whatsoever?
But the simple reason I like Superman because it's S and I'm Stuart S. Point taken, Dinesh, but that is a perfect example of how you could differ in opinion and you may not always see eye to eye, but I still will go with Superman.
But in all my years of being on the other side of the arguments, you know, we up against each other in the courtrooms, in the politics and stuff. This one really hit me hard when I saw that, you know, Batman. Anyway, but that was to end on a lighter note. Honorable Prime Minister, of course, I'm deeply appreciative of your time. I mean, invitations were issued to office holders. You responded pretty much immediately. And, well, you know, I'm out of a job, right? The one that I had before. So I am full-time back in my legal practice, right? So it was really on account of my commitments that we couldn't have facilitated this earlier. But I know on your end, you did reach out, and we are grateful for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I must say this part because it would not do justice to the fact that Honorable Prime Minister was very much interested in taking up this interview. And we certainly wanted to hear from you. I thought, and not myself personally, but I think management was of the view that there must be a platform which is something separate from the platforms out there, that you can have the expression of views and what you think of as your vision. And people, especially the youths, that they could, you know, tune into something like this and they would be able to understand without getting too much, because young people have the tendency that they don't want necessarily, not all, some, they don't necessarily want to get into the nitty-gritty and the bacchanal that we could see out there sometimes. I use that loosely. I mean, there's a fair amount of peacock that goes out there that is expected, but sometimes it is not all that. And sometimes young people, they're very much turned off and they immediately go into their own cocoon. And you would appreciate this with your experience and stuff. So I'm very happy, and I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank your staff who would have been liaising with us in terms of ensuring that this took place. I use the opportunity on behalf of Secretary General, President General, the Mahasabha Board, management of Radio and TV Jaagriti, to say thank you tremendously, profusely, for spending this time with us at this critical time, because we would like our viewers and listeners, and not just ours, but citizens at large, the opportunity to hear from you, get up and close, personal with you, and therefore they can make up their minds moving forward. So I want to say thank you very much.
Dinesh, thank you, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank your Secretary General, President General, the Mahasabha organization, which has a very important role to play and to continue, has played and to continue playing in Trinidad and Tobago's prosperity and our direction forward. And that's my call. My call is for togetherness and for unity. So thank you for this opportunity. I'd have you know it's the first interview that I've done, sit down, since I've become Prime Minister, which now is about 4 weeks. And I am glad it unfolded this way. So thank you very much, and especially to the staff who made this possible. And I look forward to the future, and I look forward to us writing the next chapter together.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard, of course, from none other than the Honorable Stuart Young, Senior Counsel Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Technical team, I want to say thanks to all of the members. They are here. On a lighter note again, before I thank the viewership, I want to say that for all the time I have been doing Josh, Vivek, Bimal, for all the time that I've been doing Jagaran, I didn't have an audience waiting outside to greet me to come into studio. But today when I arrived, I saw people, like an entourage, and they're waiting. So, I mean, I thought I could feel good about myself, but no, they were waiting to meet the Prime Minister. So
because they're Superman fans.
Well, we will leave that discussion for next time, right? But viewers and listeners, thank you very much for joining Jagaran, The Awakening, this evening. It has been my pleasure, of course, to wearing a different cap, to be responsible for conducting the segment and having the personality of Stuart Young, Senior Counsel, in studio, being our guest today. So, Prime Minister, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Sitaram, good evening, and we depart at this point in time.
So to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that was the interview with Stuart Young and Dinesh Rambally, one of the so-called dissident that would have made a stance based on his belief, such as the words of Dinesh Rambally. Now again, as I would have told you several times here, people, someone views on particular points, anytime you don't represent the views of particular people tends to rebel. And although I stand in solidarity with the UNC party, I don't agree with the decision of the representation that they would have sent for both Point and Library. And again, when I say we, I and Sheldon Can would have offered up ourselves to represent the people within this area without fear or favor. And if at the end of the day that it's reaching to this point here now, that the views of certain individuals that do not feel represented in any particular party, there is room for you outside here. And when I say that, I say all. Be careful what you say within the public domain. There are people making certain pronouncements and there are people listening. So there was a statement that was made on a program, and there were particular people that would have taken offense to it. We here on this platform would have spoken talk to Anna Monsami concerning the things that she is saying within the public domain. There are people that are not taken lightly to the statement that she is making. Trust what I say. Or you see what take place. Or you understand that there is Hindu people that do not like what Kamala Prasad Bisesa would have done to Dinesh Rambally. And when I say that, I see all. So on this program here, we are going to invite Dinesh Rambally here. A matter of fact, it done set up. I've been real with all here. And we are going to let him have his say here on this platform. My name is Radisson Jeffrey. This is the Workers' Rights Platform. And I am out. Or you call Anna and tell she, stop giving her mouth liberty and certain things that she do not know. When I say that, I say all. Good night to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Today is the 17th of April 2025, and this is his statement.
Good morning again, Andy, Mikey Lennox, and to everybody out there. I want to thank our caller, our economist, for that wonderful contribution concerning the religious, the Muslim aspect of it. And I would to touch on the Hindu aspect of it. I am calling, and I made this call for the local government election. And this morning, as we have 14 days and 12 hours to victory, I am appealing to our Hindu brothers and sisters. Do not listen to the Mahasabha. The Mahasabha don't pay all your bills for all you, right? They don't buy medication for all you. They don't pay all your property tax for all you, right? The Mahasabha is a PNM party group, and I make no apologies for saying it. They can say how much they want that they're not supporting no political party, but we all know differently, okay? And what is even worse, you see that Dharmacharya, remember, he was the one that was forcing all you to go and take that vaccine because his nephew was the CMO, the DMO, sorry, whoever he was, right? He forcing people to take that vaccination. People bear that in mind. They cannot tell all you what to do. It is all your life that all you have to live. It's all you have to face, the groceries, the pharmacies, the gas pump. It's all you have to pay all your own bills, not them. So do not be swayed by the Mahasabha. And next thing I want to touch on.
Or you hear the statement of Anna Monsami? Or you hear this man just giving him out liberty? And there are people that was saying this man just giving him out liberty and not understanding the struggles, and not understanding the discipline, and not understanding the commitment of astute Hindus within this community, within Trinidad and Tobago. That is what you go say? Don't follow the head. What does really be going through Anna's mind, boy? Because when my brothers and sisters from the Hindu community would have called out to me and say, here we're going on, Jeffrey, you had to say something about this. I plan not to take a direct approach to these things again, because I'm fed up now. People have to watch what they're damn saying about people in the public domain. There are people listening on all different programs. You see when things end up too far? You see when things reach a particular distance to the point that you feel you could talk on behalf of an organization that you are not a part of. This man Dinesh Rambally, you can call him whatever you want, snake or no snake, he entertained a view that reflect the people that he follows, and you have to have respect for that. No matter what part of society you came from, this Trinidad and Tobago belong to all of us. And if this man represents a group in Trinidad and Tobago that is reflecting a particular views, and he would have made that view public, and at the end of the day you pelt him out a party, or you understand the people who he follow, understand the pressures that the man have to endure on a daily basis concerning the decision that he make on their behalf, and ask them why you support a party that don't want to hear we, why you support a party that kick you out, why you support a party that don't itself want to hear what we saying. That is why it is important that you hear the people. When they cry out, it is important that you hear them. So when I talk on behalf of Labre and the people within my constituency, I know what I am saying. People fed up within this area, and they send a political squatter, Clyde Elder, to represent them. A man that is dumb, deaf and blind politically, knows nothing about representation, but yet you send it here and expect we to support that? Something wrong with Oyo. I would have had a call today. Jeffrey, we want you to back down. We want certain things to take place. And I am telling you here on this platform here, without no apology, without fear of friend or family, that is an order I am unwilling to comply with. The people within my area deserve proper representation. And I believe that I could bring that to them. Not with this weak candidate. We can support that down here. And they go see coming up within a few weeks. I have nothing to say. My name is Wenderson Jeffrey. This is the Workers' Rights Platform, and I am out. Good night to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago.